The butterfly sapling, it's a spirit-type monster that clings to trees like a parasite. It appeared on the last day of the end-of-term exam and was killed by the main characters. In that process, Kim Soho got the dust of the sapling, and Rachel got the clue about enlightenment. That's how the original story goes, but Rachel is currently teaming up with him to help her enlightenment. He had to get her to join the fight against the butterfly sapling, but the problem was feeling confused. Rachel then asked him why he was circling around this area. It was because Hajin didn't know when and where the butterfly sapling would appear. He never wrote such details. Hajin didn't know what to answer her question. After collecting and stacking all the monsters they had hunted, Nayeon thought maybe she would get first place in this exam if it was like this. She wondered what was the remaining 20 hours until the exam was over. Young-han looked exhausted after doing all that activity. He told them that he wanted to drink first. When Soho was about to stand up, Nayeon suddenly called him. She asked, in his eyes, "What is Kim Hajin like?" Soho was then confused to hear her suddenly ask that question. Nayeon said, "Doesn't he seem to be hiding a lot of things? He continues to feel suspicious, both at the museum and in Paris. Moreover, he might be strong enough to be on par with high-ranked cadets despite having a weak-looking body." Hearing that, Soho felt she had a point. He suddenly remembered Hajin's words at that time. At that time Hajin said that he knew more about Nayeon than him. Soho suddenly smiled when he remembered that. Nayeon was then confused to see him suddenly react like that. Soho just chuckled. He said it seemed like Hajin was hiding a lot of things. Hearing that, Nayeon then asked him, did he know anything? She asked him to tell her now, but what they didn't realize was, there were currently many creeping roots approaching them. Soho just told her to find out for herself. Why did she even ask him? Suddenly, many giant creeping roots suddenly appeared enveloping the two of them. They were then shocked and confused to see it. They were shocked when they saw the roots of a tree that was there suddenly moved to attack them. This incident did not only happen to Soho and Nayeon. Hajin and the other cadets also experienced it. They seemed overwhelmed in repelling attacks from the tree roots. Rachel herself was now confused when the place where she was standing suddenly shook violently as if hit by an earthquake, and when her heart was filled with feelings of confusion, Hajin suddenly called her. He invited her to go to the source of this vibration and kill the monster. Hajin also asked her to protect him when they were near the monster, although Rachel still felt confused. But she accepted his invitation without asking. The cadets who felt this vibration must be heading straight to the butterfly sapling now. He would not let them get the opportunity, and the two of them then both moved towards it. Seeing the large tree with its roots swaying around it like it was protecting something, Sung-ah knew that it was a butterfly sapling. Her colleague then asked her over the intercom, monsters like that shouldn't appear, right? Should they stop the exam? Sung-ah was silent for a moment hearing that. She then said, it will probably be fine. The ability of the cadets undergoing the current exam should be able to defeat it without any problems. Hearing that, her colleague could only lament her barrenness. Hearing that, Sung-ah asked, did he really think so? She told her colleague named Vieri not to underestimate them. The cadets are the seeds of heroes, and heroes always thrive in times of crisis. With a sword in her hand, Nayeon then jumped and cut the roots of the tree with one slash. With a happy smile, she then asked their opinions about her action just now. Soho was amazed to see that. It was really amazing. But he told her that the cutting power would increase if she flowed sword energy around the sword. Nayeon was upset to hear that. She told him to be quiet, tell her about it later, looking at the roots that kept appearing. Young-han was confused. Why did they keep appearing no matter how many times they cut them? Hearing that, Soho said, if cutting the roots didn't work, then they had to destroy the main body first. As the cadets moved closer to the tree, they then found something strange in the tree. Something inside the cocoon was moving, and shortly after, a creature then came out of the cocoon. The creature had a shape like a giant purple butterfly. They were then puzzled when they saw a butterfly coming out of the cocoon on the tree. After fully exiting the cocoon, the butterfly sapling then flew to the top of the island. Not only that, it also released a kind of powder that spread throughout the island, and when the cadets inhaled the powder, they then felt strange. Nayeon was confused about what this was. She lost her strength after inhaling the powder. She couldn't stand up straight. It wasn't just her who experienced these symptoms. Other cadets were also the same. Some even fell down immediately when they inhaled the powder. As Nayeon continued to inhale the powder, her condition worsened, until she couldn't stand up anymore. But fortunately Suho immediately came to help her. He put Nayun and Yonghan, who fell unconscious, in a tree nearby. Seeing their condition, Suho wondered if they were just asleep. He felt like the powder was not poisonous. He realized that he could not continue to move while holding his breath. He doubted, could he defeat that creature before he took another breath? But while Suho was confused about how to deal with that creature, he was then surprised when he saw two human figures moving towards the butterfly sapling. The two people were of course Hajin and Rachel. He really took this exam with full preparation. He had even prepared a mask to deal with the butterfly sapling powder. Suho could only be dumbfounded at that. He was really surprised at the appearance of the two of them. As the two of them moved towards the butterfly, Rachel then saw the cadets collapsed on the ground. She wondered if Hajin had predicted all this and prepared everything. But her attention was soon distracted when Hajin suddenly called out to her, while pointing towards the butterfly sapling flying above them. Hajin said that he was going to defeat it, so he asked her to protect him from the roots. Rachel understood. Hearing her confirmation, Hajin then aimed his gun and shot at the butterfly, but unfortunately, his shot failed to hit the butterfly because of how fast it moved. Realizing that there was someone endangering the life of the butterfly sapling, the roots then immediately moved to attack them, but fortunately Rachel was able to block the attack of the roots. But the problem they faced was certainly not that easy. Rachel was then surprised. When she felt movement coming from the ground below her, she knew that the roots would emerge from under there. Realizing that, Rachel then immediately pushed Hajin away from there, but even though she managed to save Hajin, her own situation was serious at the moment, because the roots managed to wrap around one of her ankles. After that, the roots then threw Rachel strongly. It made Rachel hit the tree there strongly. Seeing that, Hajin then worriedly called her, and what made him more worried was, when he saw the roots again moving to attack him, he was really in a desperate situation right now. Because he was a sharpshooter, he wouldn't be able to fend off the roots as easily as a sword user like Rachel, and when the roots finally landed on him, the impact was devastating. But fortunately, Suho immediately came to his rescue. Hajin was then surprised when he saw him. He asked, what was he doing here? But Suho couldn't answer his question at the moment. Doing a little movement earlier had made him inhale the powder a little. Realizing his situation, Hajin then asked him to hold on, looking at Rachel who was lying on the ground unconscious. Hajin wondered if Rachel had fainted. He was really confused about what to do at the moment. There had to be someone to protect him from the root attack while he focused on defeating the butterfly sapling, and in the midst of his confusion, the Evangel seed that had been hiding in his clothes suddenly came out. Hajin was shocked to see that. He then asked the seed, where are you going? But Evangel's seed completely ignored his call and continued towards Rachel. The goal was clear. It wanted to suck the blood that came out of Rachel's wound. Hajin could only feel annoyed at the behavior of the seed. Suho then asked him, he was here to defeat the butterfly, right? He said he would help him even though he seemed to be unable to move for a long time. Hearing that, Hajin thought, he could only make 3 fire element bullets with the stigma's mana, so he should be able to defeat it with that. Hajin then stood up and asked him to help him. He asked, earlier he saw his bullet missed, right? The monster moved very fast, unlike ordinary spirit-type monsters. If he wanted to kill it he had to aim at it when he was close enough. He wanted him to distract it until he was close to it. Hearing that, Suho understood. He then put his mana into his sword. Seeing that, Hajin knew it was the sword Saint Mana. He wondered, had it become stronger since the incident at the museum? Suho then turned to him while smiling slightly. He said that it was really fascinating. Hajin was then confused to hear him suddenly say that. He did not understand why Suho suddenly said that. Suho said, whatever secret weapon he took out, he was always not surprised. He also asked, did he already know Nyan's talent? Sometimes when he saw him, it felt like he was seeing someone who knew everything about this world. Suho smiled very brightly. Hajin could only be stunned at this time. Suho then said he would leave the rest to him, and he then jumped up to face the roots. Hajin could not wake up from his shock at this time. Seeing Suho who was now busy facing the roots, Hajin then thought, how would I know that? It's only because the person who created this world is me, the author. Because of that, a problem has occurred. Hajin's current goal was to go to the top of the towering tree on the island. He looked a little difficult in climbing the tree, but finally, he made it to the top. The sun was shining very brightly there. The world he made as this novel, now was right in front of his eyes. When he heard Suho's words earlier, He then realized that he became a character he had never made before. With an aiming position, Hajin then pressed the trigger, and fired at the butterfly sapling. The bullet burned the butterfly. Suho was surprised to see him could use the fire element. He wondered, this should be enough, right? The butterfly sapling was burning badly at the moment. Even so, it was still alive. Hajin was then surprised to see that. He felt anxious at this time. He wondered, was the attack power a bit lacking? But just as he was about to shoot the bullet once again, someone suddenly moved at this time, and attacked towards the butterfly. The attack from that person was so strong that it made the butterfly sapling unable to fly anymore. Hajin was then shocked by the sudden change, accompanied by the sound of footsteps. The boss then appeared. Her body seemed to be enveloped by a pitch-black aura at this time. Seeing her appearance, Hajin wondered if she was aiming for the butterfly powder. Seeing that the butterfly was about to fall to the ground, Suho didn't waste the opportunity. With a quick movement, Suho then slashed the butterfly to ensure its death. A very loud sound was then heard as the giant butterfly fell to the ground. Seeing that, Suho smiled happily, seeing the monster was defeated. And he then just fell unconscious. The slash seemed to drain the remaining strength in him. The boss herself then walked towards the corpse of the butterfly sapling. But when she was about to take something inside the butterfly corpse, Hajin suddenly told her to hand it over. He said that it was an item that she shouldn't take. She still didn't know what the butterfly powder was for. She might be here to target the powder because drop items from spirits could be sold for a lot of money. In order to fight the spirits that will appear in the future, Kim Suho must get the butterfly powder. The boss then turned her head and looked in his direction. Looking at Suho and the other main characters who were unconscious, the boss thought, even though the butterfly was dead and the sleeping effect was not that strong, she could not believe that there was a cadet who was still strong standing. She felt that Kim Hajin was really strange. She decided to observe him more. Hajin could do that was because he covered his breathing path with ether. Even so, he already felt discomfort at this time. He wondered, had he reached his limit holding the powder with ether? He was also having trouble breathing. He couldn't go on like this. He had to wear the mask. But, Hajin was then surprised when he saw the boss suddenly attack him. The boss enveloped him using the black aura. The black aura then formed a kind of black ball that surrounded the two of them. The boss now no longer needed to be afraid of someone seeing her true form because there were only two of them there. After removing her disguise, the boss then asked him, he knows who she is, right? Hearing that, Hajin then answered, she is Li Xiaopeng, right? That was the name on the business card that the boss gave him during the midterm exam. The boss was silent for a moment hearing that. She didn't know who Li Xiaopeng was, but she then remembered that it was a fake identity that she used when she approached Kim Hajin that time. The boss then confirmed it. She asked, according to him, why was she here? Hajin asked her back, wasn't she here to observe? The boss didn't answer and asked again. How long had he known that she was Li Xiaopeng? And when Hajin was about to make an excuse, with a threatening look, the boss said, if he dared to lie, she would kill him. She means, beat him up. Hajin was very scared to hear that. He then immediately said that he found out when he stole her smartwatch. When he looked at her more carefully, he noticed she was a little different. The boss was confused to hear that. Hajin said that he had sharp eyes. Hearing that, the boss then thought, Jane's talent could not see things with just sharp eyes. But Kim Hajin could not only see through Jane's talent, but also the consciousness barrier device. It raised a guess in the boss's mind, perhaps, his mana was anti-magic. A special case where all mana in the body is anti-magic. If true, then it makes sense that he can see through Jane's talent, because he only needs to focus his mana on the optic nerve to do so, and if this theory is true, it means that he is a very valuable resource that she cannot let go. Realizing that, the boss then removed the black aura that surrounded them. Hajin could only be surprised to see that, but his surprise did not stop there. The boss then gave him the butterfly powder. She said she would give this to him, in return, but the boss suddenly shut up. Hajin could only be confused to see that. Jane, who was watching, then asked her not to say anything strange, just do as she said. If she didn't know what to say, she asked her to calm down, don't rush, just slow down. Hearing that, the boss was silent for a moment. She then suddenly asked Hajin to give his phone number. Hajin could only be stunned to hear that. After successfully escaping from the clutches of the boss, Hajin could finally breathe a sigh of relief. He thought he was going to die earlier, although it was a bit dangerous, but he managed to get an important object. But he was confused. How did he give this to Suho naturally? Because the boss suddenly intervened, he had to think of a way, but, Hajin then finally remembered something. He momentarily forgot about Rachel and Evangel's seed, but when he saw their current condition, he was then surprised. A bright light appeared from Rachel's body at this time. Hajin did not expect that to even happen. It was an indication that Evangel would hatch. The light continued to shine brighter and brighter until Hajin was unable to see it directly. Rachel herself now felt very sleepy. She was still thinking that she had to quickly defeat the spirit, she had to be ranked first and become the pride of the royal family, but she was confused. What was happening? It was so bright, and what made her more confused was, when she saw a little girl in front of her, the little girl then hugged her. Rachel was confused about who she was. She also felt that her wound had recovered. It felt very warm. When looking at the little girl, somehow Rachel felt that she was very familiar. It felt like she was like her as a child. Her face was really exactly like her. The little girl seemed to say something to her, but she didn't hear it clearly. Rachel was then confused to hear that. She was confused about what she had just said. She thought that she should ask her about it, but it seemed that she couldn't do that now. She was too sleepy. When Rachel fell back asleep, she muttered, "What did you just say?" Seeing Hajin coming, the little girl then called him Dad, and said that Mom was asleep again. The little girl is of course Evangel. After a while, the instructors then came to evacuate them. Hajin also brought Suho, who also fainted. The instructors brought the sleeping cadets back to the ship. The fourth day of the exam had ended. 9 o'clock the next day, Hajin was seen pensively looking at the sea. The grueling final exam had finally reached its end, although there was a slight interruption about the appearance of the butterfly sapling that even the instructors did not expect, but it was agreed that the 4 cadets who contributed to defeating the creature would be rewarded with points. Hajin then opened his smartwatch, but there was no new message that he got, no contact from the Chameleon troop. He was confused why the boss was interested in him. He really couldn't think of a reason. But Nayan suddenly approached him and called him. She asked how he could do it at that time. Hajin was then confused to hear that. Nayan said she didn't remember anything because she fainted, but Kim Suho said he destroyed the butterfly's wings or something. Hearing that, Hajin pretended not to understand. He just answered, how could he destroy the butterfly's wings with just a gun? Nayan also felt that it didn't make sense. Hajin then remembered. He asked, why did she use a sword instead of her bow? His question really surprised Nayan. She was very upset with him, but she didn't know what to say. Hajin said, he meant, if you are a person, you have to be consistent. It is dangerous to use a weapon that you are not good at. Nayan could only feel upset hearing that. She was not that bad that he had to worry about. Hearing that, Hajin decided not to care anymore. He then asked her again, then, how did she feel after using the sword? Nayan seemed to feel hesitant to answer. Seeing that, Hajin asked, it was still scary, right? But Nayan didn't want to admit that. She stammered, who is scared? Idiot. Hearing that, Hajin knew she was lying. Chai Nayan was very bad at lying, but somehow he didn't think of changing her nature, but still. Hajin said that she would get better if she continued like that. She was a natural swordsman. Nayan was speechless when she heard that. When it was time to eat, Nayan then gathered with Yona and Suho. I don't know what they were talking about earlier, but Yona said that according to her, it seemed that Hajin was interested in her. Nayan said that was not what she meant, not caring about her reaction. Yona then asked Suho, he is close to Hajin, right? Did he hear something from him? Suho was even confused to hear that. Is he close to him? Suho then recalled his conversation with Hajin at that time. He said that Yona was not wrong either. Yona continued, Kim Hajin was very cold and blunt to anyone even if they tried to approach him, but that kind of person showed a lot of interest in Nayan. Hearing that, Nayan embarrassedly asked her, wasn't she very close to Hajin from the beginning? Yona confirmed that. He approached her because he wanted to say something to her. But didn't he show interest in her in a different way? Nayan was embarrassed to hear that. Her face turned red from blushing. She said that wasn't what she meant. Yona then asked her, so, what will she do? Nayan was then confused to hear that. But Yona then suddenly saw Hajin. She then immediately called him. Yona and Suho then both greeted him. Hajin also greeted them back, while Nayan herself turned her face in embarrassment. Hajin looked at her for a moment, then just left from there. Yona realized it. She asked her, she saw that right? He just looked at her when he left. Hearing her banter, Nayan immediately told her to stop. She was really blushing at this time. After a while, Hajin then arrived in his room. He asked, "Are you inside?" Right after that, Evangel then came over to her dad. Hajin was still not used to being called daddy. He asked her not to run around. Evangel asked, "Where did he come from?" Hajin said that he already said, he bought food for her. Evangel was happy to hear him buy her food. By the way, Hajin asked her not to call him daddy from now on. Evangel was then confused to hear that. Hajin said that people could misunderstand later. Hearing that, Evangel once again asked, "Why?" Hajin asked, "Can she call him uncle or Kim Hajin?" But Evangel once again asked, "Why?" Hajin was really helpless to hear that. He thought, looks like she needs a little education. As he looked at her, Evangel then smiled sweetly at him. Evangel hatched next to Rachel that day. He called her daddy and said that mommy was asleep again. Hearing her call him daddy, Hajin was confused. She had just hatched herself. But Evangel said that he was her daddy. It was true that he took care of her, but did not give Hajin the opportunity to speak further. Evangel suddenly hugged him. She seemed to really consider Hajin as her parent, but Hajin was then surprised when he saw a helicopter patrolling the island. Seeing that, Hajin then asked her, could she go into the seed again for a while, but Evangel didn't seem to understand the word seed. He said. Hajin explained, the shape was round and small, like herself before. Hearing that, Evangel then asked, what about mommy? Hajin was really helpless to hear her call Rachel mommy. He then just said that mommy was busy. Evangel seemed a little sad to hear that, but she then obeyed her daddy's words, and she then returned to being a seed. That's why Hajin managed to smuggle a small child into the ship. Hajin was really confused at this time. He was an adoptive parent or what? Seeing Evangel who was playing around, Hajin then told her to eat first. Evangel was very happy to hear that. Hajin then prepared the food he had bought for her, and when Evangel ate the food, she looked very happy. Seeing that, Hajin then told her to sit down and eat properly. Evangel understood. After taking care of Evangel, Hajin's gaze then turned to the butterfly powder he had obtained on the island. He wondered, what should he do with this? The powder was called the powder of butterfly sapling. It attached to the target with magical power, and helped awaken their hidden potential. The description is simple, but the subject of the hidden potential to be awakened depends on the target. In other words, the awakened potential can be a person or an item. Originally, it should be taken by Rachel and Kim Suho, but the story this time is different. Hajin thinks that he should be more careful about who he should give this to, while Rachel herself is now pensively looking at the ceiling of her room. She is still thinking about what she saw before she fell unconscious on the island. She is confused. Who is the little girl she saw? She was more like feeling her than seeing her. She can still feel her energy clearly. She wondered, was she the spirit of the tree or something? Her spirit beast powers were still unknown, or was she just hallucinating? But she didn't feel that she was just hallucinating. Rachel smiled as she recalled the little girl's face. She was confused. Why did she keep thinking about the energy she felt, as if she would meet her again someday?